Syria with surprising new revelations. A former top official says the country provided shelter and built safe havens for Al-Qaeda for years. This is the most senior Syrian diplomat to defect and publicly support the country's uprising. Former Syrian ambassador to Iraq, Nawaf al-Faraz, defected last week. He sat down with our Ivan Watson for his first television interview with the U.S. network. Al-Faraz says the country is, quote, a totalitarian regime and a dictatorship, and all orders come from President Assad.
In 2003, after the American invasion of Iraq and the toppling of the Iraqi regime, the Syrian regime felt threatened. So they coordinated with Al-Qaeda. They had an agreement to keep the road open to Iraq. So militants started coming from all over the world through Syria, under the eyes of the Syrian secret police, who are directly responsible for the killing of thousands of Iraqis and Americans and coalition forces. Al-Qaeda was an ally of Bashar al-Assad after 2003. He trained and provided shelter and built safe havens for Al-Qaeda to hide in.
Al-Faraz is the second high-profile Sunni official to break with the regime within a week. Ivan Watson joins us now on the phone from Doha, Qatar. So, Ivan, did Nawaf al-Faraz say why he defected exactly?
He said that it was the litany. He gave a litany of all the atrocities and massacres that have been committed, and he said he had tried to convince the Syrian government to change its approach to the Syrian people, and when he saw there was no hope of a softer approach, that he decided to end his relationship with a regime that he'd worked with, he said, for 34 years.
And what more is he saying about this connection between Al-Qaeda and the Assad regime?
Well, he basically says that the Syrian regime was funneling through jihadi militants to Iraq during the height of the violence in Iraq, during the U.S. occupation there. Of course, the U.S. government frequently accused the Damascus regime of doing that. And he specifically singled out the brother-in-law of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, a man named Asif Shaukat. He claims that Asif Shaukat was running an Al-Qaeda in Iraq safe haven, a safe house, on the Syrian-Iraqi border that was targeted by a U.S. cross-border military operation in October of 2008. This defector ambassador claims he talked to Asif Shaukat, who was at that camp an hour after the U.S. troops targeted it, and that Asif Shaukat was furious that it had been hit by U.S. forces. Of course, we cannot get comment from the Syrian government thus far about these claims, but the U.S. government was open about the fact that it targeted this camp in October of 2008, hitting what it claimed was an Al-Qaeda in Iraq militant.
And Ivan, does this former ambassador believe that others from the regime will be defecting following his suit?
Well, he said that there are not many ambassadors left to defect because many of them have already been expelled from European and other Arab countries as well as the U.S. And he said that any ambassadors who are still in position are most likely a special kind. He didn't specify what kind that will never defect. He did mention the general, Mustafa Tlas, who defected just days before him, saying that the general was a friend of his, but they had no coordination between each other about their defections that happened to fall roughly on the same day. He did predict that there probably would be other defections in the future, Fredricka.
All right, Ivan.